Do our little checklist of things to do. Okay. Sweet. Okay, so
good morning.
check. So guys, I don't know if you've met Kemba.
Not officially,
right? But this is
behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is Captain Kemba Quinn. He's our friend. Our Melena and I call him our what do you call him? Our husband?
I mean, a little bit of everything.
Our third husband. Yes, exactly. Melena's second husband. He's definitely one of the assets of our organization, and has been with us for about a year and a half, living and helping build out Big Sky, Montana. He started with us in Miami. He and I also, have started, I commissioned Kemba to be the architect of the plant medicine journey that we're going to be conducting our very first experience coming up in 8 weeks. 8 weeks,
mid-June.
Yep.
She begins.
So, we've talked a little bit about that leading up to this conversation. And Kemba's, he's a conscious cosmonaut. He's out there in search. He's done some extensive work with his own consciousness. He's done a Vipassana. Where did you? Was that South Africa?
It was, yes.
South Africa Vipassana. Which, if for you guys who aren't familiar with Vipassana, why don't you tell people what a Vipassana is?
So it's based on the Buddhist meditation practices. It's essentially means an insight meditation. So it's a pure observation of sensations and emotion as they come and go, right? So very similar to Zen meditation practices. With this particular course, they call it a course, it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And it is certainly one of the most profound experiences I have sat through. It's sitting through your own mind and the habit patterns of your own mind. So it's
even
very
harder,
powerful.
even harder than to sit through a conversation with me. It took even more skill, more patience,
different tools, shall we say? Different tools, different applications.
All right, yeah, because my Indian name is many words.
Yes, you do trigger me sometimes.
Yes,
always talking.
That's it.
Oh
yes, God. A lot of output.
I just enjoy the silence.
A lot
sometimes.
No, because I have to narrate the silence. I have to narrate what's happening.
Like in the ice bath, was it a couple in the evening? You just couldn't stop talking.
No, because that's how I release tension. Some people cry, I talk. Yeah, there's a lot of tension in my life. Exactly. And so just to go sort of another layer into the Vipassana experience, what's a day like in Vipassana?
It's a 4 a.m. start to the sound of a gong.
4 a.m. start.
Oh yes.
Okay, so we're up and we're to be somewhere at 4 a.m. Or
so 4:30 is you're in the meditation hall, starting your first practice. And each meditation is an hour period with little breaks in between, whether it's half an hour or an hour, depending if it's a meal time or just a reset. But literally the whole day, the schedule is just meditation. It's just sitting. You walk it off, shake it off the pain in the knees and the aches in the back, either to get some fresh air and then get back to sitting.
And so how many hours in a day collectively will you sit?
10 to 11 hours a day.
Okay, so 10 to 11 hours of seated meditation.
Correct.
For 10 days straight.
Right.
For the folks out there who aren't familiar with the Vipassana structure, which is a very highly respected and regarded experience. They use it somewhat as a therapy in some of the Indian jail systems. I've seen it used in some really interesting ways, and it's had some really incredible. It's produced some really incredible things. As an example, amongst the inmates of some of the Indian prisons.
Yeah, just the psychological transformation that can occur when you see the habit patterns that create your own suffering and your own trauma. You can catch them out and you can change, right? experience directly that you are the creator of your own suffering. You know?
Because there's this continuous loop of your own narrative and your own story coming up over and over again.
Right.
And in meditation, at least,
Right.
for people, if you're a longtime meditator, you're going to be constantly hearing your internal dialogue, which is interesting because at some point you become aware of your dialogue, and then you become aware that you really have no control over it, that you don't really control what you think. You don't really control like if I said to someone right now, tell me the next thought that's going to come into your mind.
Right.
It'd be impossible for you to do that.
Yeah, but you learn what you can control, and that's the beauty of it.
Right. Well, here I think there's a distinction in the term control.
Mm-hmm.
What you can learn to do, from my personal experience and the way I would frame this or define this for a person who was trying to understand what the difference is what you're trying to do is, first of all, become aware of something, and then make a decision, because the way that the brain actually works anatomically is that it can't listen and quote unquote think at the same time. So what most people don't realize is they're in a constant pattern of thinking rather than a pattern of listening. So when you switch from active listening, or switch from active thinking to active listening, then that's the control. Basically, you can't actually stop a thought. You can, this is the irony of it's sort of a contradicting statement. You can't stop a thought by stopping it. You can stop a thought by listening. And that's the distinction that people need to understand.
As well as, I would say the key power that you learn is you see the link between thought, with your pattern of thinking, and how you feel, right? So you not only see the patterns of mind, but you see how in those patterns and those cycles it makes you feel. So just having seeing that clear relationship in yourself, that then you can choose how the direction of thought. Right, because you do certainly have some sort of control there.
Well, we can debate that point. Let's go for it. Give it to me. Convince me.
Well, certainly you can control how much you think with certain practices. So let's say we have contemplative practices where we focus on emptying the mind. Right, so then we're consciously reducing thought.
Okay, so how do we reduce thought?
Concentration.
On what?
In Vipassana particularly, it's a sensation.
Okay.
Yes.
So in other words, we're redirecting thought.
Well, in the beginning it's thought.
Or you're redirecting awareness.
Because that's the only thing you're familiar with. You're only familiar with thought. But in time, you learn how to purely perceive sensation without cognition. And I think that is something particularly special.
Whoa. You can do nothing without cognition.
Okay, without, should I say, cognition and greed, but rather, the linguistic process occurring. So that can quieten.
By doing what?
By observing purely on sensation.
So switching to observation.
Correct.
Going back to my original point, which is instead of thinking thoughts, you become aware of. So again, I'm talking pure science. The way the brain, operates is it has two modes. It's got a mode of thought and a mode of observation or witness state. So when you go into the samadhi state, you're in pure witness.
Right.
You've transitioned from thought. So so let's say that you're in this experience, and you've been thinking. Let's say your first hours, your first days are going to be really.
It's pretty much 3 to 4 days where the biggest struggle. But there comes a time where you feel like you're just drowning in your own thoughts, and a particular switch happens where you come up for a breath of fresh air, and that fresh air is emptiness. But it takes, let's say, 40 hours. 40 hours just sitting through the patterns of your own mind.
Just kind of listening to your bullshit for 40 hours.
It's when you just get so sick of it
Yeah.
that something happens where you just learn how to shift your attention elsewhere.
So
Right.
the experience that, so now that's, Vipassana for, you guys out there who maybe have very little experience with Vipassana or maybe little, you've never really heard someone interviewed or someone discuss what Vipassana is like in a first person experience. Before we move on from that, does anyone have any questions from our group here? Anybody have any questions for Kemba about the Vipassana experience, about the 10-day deep dive from his experience? I'm just going to open the floor for just a moment to see if anybody, before we move from there, just want to check on that. Anything coming in, Melaine? Anything coming in?
People typing, yeah. So Uta's asking, do the thoughts ever disappear?
Okay. Uta's asking, do the thoughts ever disappear?
No, but what shifts is your kind of emotional conduct towards them. It's a typical saying, do you identify with your thoughts? But to experience that, where you can choose how you hold this thought, the power of this thought. The power of thoughts dwindle, and you can realize you have the strength to navigate your mind in a new way.
I think what's important, to that question is, the brain, and people just need to understand this from the perspective purely of again, anatomy and physiology, is that the brain's function is to think. That's what it does. So asking your heart to stop beating is equivalent to asking your brain to stop thinking. So its natural state, if you will, it is to process information. So
it is our survival mechanism.
Sure.
That's how we survive.
Right. So to think that the brain's ever going to, completely stop thinking, is obviously it's.
When you're dead.
Right. When you're dead, so it's not going to stop thinking. But what's interesting is what you're doing in the practice of long-term seated meditation is you're listening. You're actively, purposefully listening, and the listening in and of itself is difficult. So the listening action for the mind takes real effort, and it's a skill you develop. So you learn to listen without thinking over your listening. So what happens for people that you need to understand is that if you practice meditation long enough, guys, you're going to get better at listening. You're going to get more time put in as a listener, and therefore you're going to be able to switch from, possibly being hijacked by thought and then just transitioning quickly to a listening state. Because again, you've practiced listening. So long-term meditators have they're long-term listeners, long-term practiced listeners, to be specific. And so they've learned to exercise the other side of the coin, because the brain, again, only does two things. It listens or it thinks. So
And
if
I
you
think
can
there's a
flip
key
the coin.
point there too about listening, because my brain thinks linguistics when I think listen, but I think do we mean that in a more broader sense of, because listening is just the pure experiencing.
Right. Listening for me is just the pure witness of what is. It has nothing to do with hearing language or seeing symbols.
Right.
It's just, is a bird chirping?
Right.
Did a sound just occur? So listening is just, again, pure witness of the surroundings, which you would call sensation a moment ago. I think it could be listening to the pain in your knee. But it's awareness, which is what cognition or consciousness ultimately is. It's first it's awareness, and then from a developmental standpoint, the way that human beings have developed, which is very interesting. I was watching this with Melaine the other night. It's something I'd seen before, but it's a fascinating study on chimpanzees and their short-term memory versus their long-term memory, and how that relates to a human's short-term and long-term memory. So a chimpanzee can see on a screen, it can see a group of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're all mixed. It could be 1 is beside 9 and 3 is over, and they're all over the screen. So a chimpanzee in 0.5 seconds can see a screen with mixed numbers all over it in different places. 0.5, which means it means go. It means literally, because at 1 second is 1 second. So
Right.
this ape can see. It's a flash, and can go 1, 2, 7, 3, 5, and in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can touch the numbers in order. A human can't even get close to this. So what's fascinating. This is a study that was done by a primatologist in Kyoto's primate school in Japan, and his sort of what he was learning from is that the chimpanzee has an incredibly powerful short-term memory, because the chimpanzee needs to identify how many enemies are possibly in front of it in order to make a decision like that very fast. And so whereas a human,
How is their long-term memory?
okay, terrible compared to
us?
Okay, yeah, right. We have this amazing. In fact, our long-term memory is what makes us human, because we have the ability to remember
And
back
create identity
based on memory, right, all the way back to childhood, and we have the ability to imagine into the future, which of course makes us human and makes us distinct from our cousins. So. But what was interesting is the reason that his theory, it's called cognitive trade. I think the term was cognitive trade-off, memory. Cognitive replacement trade-off, something. So his theory is that in order for humans to learn language and symbols that helped language, we gave up some space in the brain, because again, there's space, and we said, okay, I've got memory over here, and I can make room for this, because my short-term memory is very good, and it helps me survive in the immediate moment by identifying 10.
Because you're not thinking.
Well, exactly. You're identifying.
You're just so present.
Going, right. Identification. Go.
Right.
So what's interesting is the theory is that we gave some of that up in order to make room for symbol
When we created language
and language making in the brain.
we became less present.
Right. So, which is why I actually brought this into the conversation, because we became less present to the isness of the moment, so that we could remember long term and see into the future with imagination. But the trade-off was our ability to be present to the isness, to the nowness, and that's the exchange that happened. So in meditation, in a way, the meditation practice is we're trying to reclaim some real estate,
some space,
and get back to our original state of our ability to concentrate on the isness, the nowness, and be there in it more often than we are in symbology, in memory. Because again, every time we have to remember, we have to use a word. There has to be a dip into the memory bank
Right.
to even though it's very fast.
I mean, it feels slow and clumsy sometimes.
Yes, it can feel right. It can feel incredibly clumsy when
Yes,
you're
so for
looking
you.
for a word. Yeah. Well, because again,
You practice
I practice,
yeah.
right, and because I practice, my vernacular or vocabulary is quick to grab.
Right.
Because I'm always impressed with someone who has a different vocabulary than I do. Like someone like Sam Harris, he has this really incredibly academic vernacular, and I'm like, wow, that's what an impressive vernacular. But again, his brain has sort of everyone has their vocabulary that they use, because I think if you were to record someone, what you would hear is the same language coming up throughout their, oh, that word, there's that word again, because we're all using words, and I don't think we are cognizant of this, but we all use for each of us, we all use a very specific vocabulary, because it's sort of our toolbox. And so yours isn't mine and mine isn't hers, and each person has their own. But what's interesting, if we're around someone long enough, we start adopting their vocabulary, and we'll start borrowing their words, which is really fascinating, because again, words are nothing but tools. And if you're like, oh, I like that tool. Oh, I like the tool you're using.
I mean, they're essentially stepping stones into the fog, right? Because the word describes an experience, and anything before language is ineffable. It's, and as soon as you have a new vocabulary, you can explain a subtlety in the human experience. So as much as it takes us out of the present, it also describes life in far more detail and beauty, which is another side of that coin.
Well, yeah, it definitely helps us. It helps us, as you were saying, articulate or share, or it helps us cooperate. Which again, now we're talking back into the development of the Homo sapien. Right. How did we get where we are? Well, cooperation. Right. And one of the really interesting questions about how we got here is: did plant medicine play a role in getting us here? Because there is quite a bit of discussion and theory around psychotropics, whether, because obviously we've been eating psychoactive plants since they've been growing on the planet.
Foraging.
Well, since we've been foraging, exactly. So because we've been eating these plants, the question is, how much have they influenced the ape we are today? What do you think?
Goodness gracious. That's a very complex topic, of course, because, we evolved in many different parts of the world, and certainly some cultures integrated into the culture more, and those are the traditions we're familiar with today that have integrated. But it is evident that tribal traditions have a particular shaman that guides people, and that was essentially their religion. That was their connection to the mystic and to the divine. So
was through their shaman.
Their shaman,
which
right.
might oftentimes be through some type of plant experience, some altered state experience through plants.
Right. So how much of us evolved through it? I mean, it was surely integral in our evolution in many cultures, but who's to say all cultures?
Yeah, it's difficult to say, because one of the theories that would sort of, you would have to have. Well, the biggest issue with the Homo sapien is that there were a large number of Homo erectus, Homo sapien, my vocabulary. See, there's where I can't remember my own vocabulary. But because there were a large number of different variations, and we're the last surviving variation of that. It's hard to believe that unless we sort of came from one particular place, and at that time, in that one particular place, plant medicine sort of sparked something, and then we spread out from there. Because, given that we've been developing like all over the landmass of the earth, you would almost have to suggest that, well, we're incredibly similar. Did the Homo sapien, as opposed to the Neanderthal, did the Homo sapien have an experience with plant medicine that gave it the edge, the cognitive edge that caused our rise and the fall of the Neanderthal?
You've all spoke about that. I think wasn't it language and cooperation?
Yes, but here's what's interesting: is language and cooperation the result of plant medicine discovery by the Homo sapien versus the Neanderthal? You know, just the Neanderthals were just smart enough not to eat shit they didn't know what it was. You know, but then that Homo sapien's like, "What's this?" And then he's like, "Ooh, fuck, I'm high." You know, and then the next thing you know, we're talking. The next thing you know, we're going, "Ooh, cloud, cloud, cloud." We're like, "What the fuck?
Stop
what
making
the?"
sounds.
Yeah, and somebody's like, "What the fuck is that?" It's cloud, cloud. Okay, I mean, you know, I'm just saying. We've obviously been using symbols.
Yeah.
Something, because again, apes, and we've studied. Well, for maybe the past 60 years, we've deeply studied chimpanzees and bonobos in really, really academic ways. But we don't see any symbology coming from our cousins. They don't draw anything. They can learn based on, but they don't draw. They don't, you know, they really don't create art or use symbols to communicate. So there's something really interesting that happened with us cognitively.
And plant medicine, something special happens in that space, no doubt.
Well, let's talk about what happens in that space.
Well, I mean, if we continue the conversation specifically around ancient traditions, you know, we look at their relationship and their harmony with nature, right? So, because you deeply, at least for most experiences, even today, most people experience a sense of the mystic, the mystical.
Okay, what does that mean?
And
let's define mystic.
We define that as an experience of interconnectedness with all peoples and things, right? A touch of the mystical.
Could we define mystical as something that is not? I mean, clearly it's not practical. It's not linear. One might say something mystical is an unexplainable sensation, something that is.
I mean, it certainly feels like an ultimate truth.
Okay.
Right. So something that's so deeply jarring and it brings up so much insight and emotion. Just it feels so deeply right.
So is it a feel? You know, you've said feeling about 3 times. So for you, at least, I said feel. But an interesting. It definitely comes up as sensation.
Yes, emotions and sensations.
Because the question is, if you didn't feel, could you have a mystic experience? Because there are some people who, as an example, have some type of cognitive distortion in the brain where they can't actually feel. Maybe they've had they were born with a particular brain condition, but
that's very specific because
I understand.
The beauty about plant medicine is that it decommissions the default mode network, right? Which is if the ego had a sensor in the brain, that's where it would be. So that's the beauty about plant medicine. It will decommission that space. So now you got other parts of the brain communicating, which would and developing new patterns.
Okay, let's talk about that for a moment. So the parts of the brain that have been decommissioned are the parts of the brain that we sort of operate on mostly, the default mode of the brain, which is what?
Which is, memory. It is our sense of time, of identity, personality, sense of self, theory of mind, where all this is located. So when that dissolves, the orchestra is no longer there. Well, the conductor of the CEO, essentially.
So sense of self, which I think is interesting for us to sort of pause on for a moment. Our identity, our sense of self. Who am I? What am I? Why am I? These sort of anchor points that we have so that we can navigate through the world. Hey, I'm Cameron and I do this and I'm the son of so-and-so and I've achieved this and I've achieved that. So like my identity being anchored in that is sort of how I, in a way, it's my currency. It's in some way. So like who you are is your currency. What you've done, what you've accomplished, what you've learned, what you can sort of bring to the table, if you will, is all your human currency. Without it, it's like, I don't know who I am. I don't know my name. I don't know what I know. I don't know my skills. I have no way to sort of.
I mean, you're just pure experiencing if you have no identity or
Right.
no memory, shall we say?
Right. And in a way, we don't celebrate that kind of experience. We want someone who's, in a way,
knows who they are.
Who knows who they are, right? They're anchored to their identity. They're clear on their identity. Right. They're married to their identity. They'll kill for their identity.
Right. I mean, this is Ram Dass becoming nobody, which is like, excuse me? And modern culture, what do you mean to become nobody? I mean, how does that fit into modern day culture, right? Becoming nobody.
And it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't fit into a Western perspective of human value. We don't value humans that are nobody. We celebrate and value humans that are somebody. And their somebodiness is the way that we determine their worth. And then in turn, it's the way we determine our own worth.
Right.
By the way that other people determine our worth. So it's like, you tell me what I'm worth. You tell me my identity is worth this, and then great, now I'm...
How I think you see me.
Exactly, which is a mind fuck, yeah. It's like, if I think you see me like this, and I see me like this, and now I feel that I'm worth this, and now we can all get along. So there's something really powerful about you suggesting that this part of the brain is disabled.
Right.
In the plant medicine experience, because what we're shifting...
Not only plant medicine, let me also be clear, it's also advanced meditation practices. When you start, it's the same part of the brain, same region that is put offline. Meditation, should we say psychedelics is the crash course, and meditation is the tried and tested long haul. Right? You're going to get to the same place, the same effect is going to take place.
Yeah,
and you can't separate them, they can't replace each other, but rather they complement each other and understanding which tool to use at which time. Right?
Yeah, I like to say that, when people ask me why psychedelics, why plant medicine, and I always say, look, you can walk up the stairs or you can take the elevator, and it's just a little different. Right. In plant medicine journey, you take an elevator up. The problem is, you haven't developed the strength that you developed by walking up the stairs. So walking up the stairs is the meditation practice, and the elevator is the plant medicine. Yeah. So you can quickly get to the penthouse and get an experience where you're like, wow, okay, this is what it can be like to be in this conscious state.
Free of identity.
Yeah.
And in particular, especially if you have ways of thinking that negatively affect your life.
Well, our addiction to our identity, our addiction and our need to be so interwoven with our identity. In other words, as just digressing for a moment, someone tells me that, I'm not pretty, but and I'm deeply identified with my beauty and my aesthetic, and that really truly wounds my energetic field, my consciousness. It does. It disturbs me in a real way, because I am my beauty. I'm not simply just isness, which, by the way, someone happens to think is pretty and someone else happens to think is ugly. And I mean, right. Why would I even depend on another person's subjective mind to determine my aesthetic value or quality?
How I feel.
Or obviously that's the secondary. That's the outcome of it. Right. It's how I feel this way, but because I've given this person authority to determine my worth, my beauty, I've given them the authority, and again, that's the thing. I've consented to it. When you let people tell you your worth by either confirming if you confirm people's opinions, basically you've declared that they have control of your identity and your worth. So it's very important that you never base anything on what other people say. And now this is a very extreme example, but it's a fact. For me, if someone tells me if someone tells me I'm ugly And I'm like, okay. And if they tell me I'm handsome, I'm like, okay. And if they tell me I'm intelligent, I'm like, okay. And if they tell me I'm stupid, I'm like, okay. Because I can't believe them. And the irony of that is I don't believe them even when they're complimenting me. You can't believe a compliment because a compliment is nothing other than
a thought.
A thought, exactly.
Which is
I mean,
so
100%.
I mean, momentary. It's just a stream of consciousness.
Yeah, so
there's no reliability of it.
Not at all, because you think I'm beautiful today, and tomorrow you think I'm ugly.
And that depends on your mood too.
That's my point. Why would I depend on Why would I depend on your constantly fucking like a ship, the way the mind vacillates from good to bad to right to wrong to I believe this today, I don't believe that tomorrow. The fact that you would ever place any real credibility or authority in another person's opinion or consciousness, it's really so I just encourage you guys out there listening today that one of the really great practices you can develop in self is to never believe anything anyone tells you about you.
And a quick little insertion there. And that starts with not believing your own thoughts, which starts through meditation practice and plant medicine, right? So you have to see your mind and not identify with thoughts, and that's the key distinction there, very, very key, because that is the moment you capture in your own consciousness, where then you can capture in the world at large and your interactions.
Add here because we had actually 2 questions.
Okay.
Hold on, we have 2 questions that have come in.
Ron and Emily, they were asking how you integrate the experience you had in meditation, right? That space that you were just referring to into your real life setting as you come home.
Well, it's a shock, absolutely, because you realize how busy and noisy the world is. And to be honest with you, all I wanted to do was go back and sit longer because even to this day, when I sit, it's the only thing that I do that feels like that's worth my time. It's the only thing. It's like, yes, this is it. This is the truth. And so it's a difficult transition.
People can become addicted. In fact, a lot of people don't realize this, but people can become addicted to seated meditation.
Yeah.
It can in and of itself become,
I mean, I almost ran away and became a monk.
Yeah.
I tried to leave, but I couldn't.
It can become a trap, and that's what a lot of people don't realize is it actually can become a trap within itself, because the peace that you find and the stillness and the tranquility can become more interesting and more important than actually being in the world in itself.
No, certainly. And, that makes sense if you want to make that, we call it career, if you want to learn that process so deeply and then share that with the world. And then in that context, it makes sense. But even to take, 2-3 years out of your life and experience that, I think there's something so profound in taking that time away. But integration, it is certainly difficult, and it takes a few weeks of reviving more thinking, because thinking is a very necessary component in existing. So such deep states don't couple very well with productivity, shall we say. So you're a lot slower, you're a lot more connected to your environment, and there's no agency to getting things done. So that works well depending on your lifestyle and what you want to create. If you want a very peaceful, slow life, you know what to do. That is your medicine. That is your tool. But to go into such deep states of meditation, but shall we say, if you just want very subtle states of clarity, if you're a business person and you're building something, of course, perhaps more subtle, more gentle meditation practices, just to feel that sense of clarity. Yeah.
Well, Captain Practicality's landing here for a moment. I just want to say that,
Did I say practical a few times too?
no, I'm talking about me coming in here and just interrupting the idea that you can just sit around and meditate all day. You can if you are Bruce Wayne and you've inherited $6 billion. I think what's difficult for people to understand is that...
Well, for example, the Vipassana organization, it's global, and you can volunteer your time and meditate for as long as you want. So there are institutions that exist out there. If that's what you want to do with your time, you will be supported in that space because you're sharing the work and that work is valued.
But I think what's important to understand is you're working, that's a work exchange program.
Sure.
Right. So people need to understand that there's no such thing as sitting and doing nothing infinitely. So yeah, in your mind, you're like, God, that sounds awesome. I'm just going to sit and people are going to put grapes in my mouth. And that's not going to happen unless you're Ramana Maharshi, who actually, who had the experience of in a cave when he was a boy. He went to the cave to die, because he had sort of found that, he sort of discovered that life was meaningless in that way. And they found him in the cave, sort of, according to the tale, he was actually being sort of nipped upon by rats. And he was literally laying there to just starve and perish. And they brought him back. And then they made him they fed him, like literally they did. He just became a conscious sort of saint in this village, and they just fed him, and he just sort of espoused wisdom, and that's what he did. Whether it was through silence or whatever, but
because wisdom is cherished,
100%. I just think that people need to be aware that I think the question is important: is how do you integrate what you learn in this very esoteric space, this space where, in a way, time stands still. There's no expectations placed upon you. How do you bring that out into the practical world and live that on a daily basis?
There is no bringing it, because you are it. The experiences don't disappear, but you carry that with you. But you have shifted in a fundamental way where you certainly speak less and observe more, right? Because you see the importance of it. You see, I'll leave it at that. The importance of clear, less thinking and more observation. Yeah, and that carries with you. There is no necessary integration, because the process of stepping out is the integration. It happens so organically and so naturally. There's no need to control or contrive that process.
I think what's interesting here too, to again reconnect the conversation to the plant medicine and meditation relationship, is that when you're in a state of psychoactive activity, and as you said, you've disabled one part of the brain, which for most people, if you don't have a lot of experience with this particular field of study, left brain, right brain has been studied for quite a long time. There's a lot of science. Academia has put a lot of time into the discovery of the difference between left and right brain. Left brain has always been considered the dominant, most important, Quick
insertion. Why do we need to know the difference between the two, as opposed to understand the whole?
Well, the reason that there has been so much study around it is because there's a fascination with why the brain is split to begin with, which is very interesting. To your very question, why is the brain even split? Yeah. Why is it not just a whole, quote unquote, piece? Because you can in fact cut the right or left side, the connection between the two, and actually, exist in a left brain state of consciousness or cognition, or a right brain state. So the understanding of why the development occurred, because I believe, and again, you can do your own research on this. Sometimes my recall is not phenomenal, but I believe the primate, it only exists in primates. that I may
that
be
particular brain structure.
Yeah, correct. And I may be wrong, but I think I'm correct. So please feel free to investigate that. But this left-right brain issue, and when we start looking at what happens as an example, some of the earliest studying of this material came from the study of individuals who had had strokes. And when you have a stroke and one side of the brain shuts down and you're now existing from the other side, they start learning that these people are very different. People who've lost right brain function are, again, they're completely different in the way they see the world, because now the right brain is, understood really, the early days, the right brain was understood as sort of this, almost sort of the kid that's along for the ride, not very developed, not very important, not very necessary in a way, because the left brain's doing all the heavy lifting. It's thinking, it's strategizing, it's crunching data. That's what it does. It's linear, it's decision making. But what they're finding is it's actually the opposite. This is at least one of the great theories from a gentleman. He's written a book called The Master and the Emissary, I believe is the title, The Master and the Emissary. You guys can look that up if I'm not incorrect. The Master and the Emissary, I think, is the title. And his take on it is that it's actually the opposite, that the right brain, which is we've always understood as the creative side, is the actual most significant part of the brain, and it's been undervalued and understudied and sort of but it's the everything. It's the most important.
So we briefly had a discussion on this where certain activities can stimulate different parts of the brain, certain environments. So to be a balanced and whole human being, understanding the necessity to balance the brain, right? Essentially.
Well, I think that's what's interesting, is that to balance is to understand that, the brain is, we live in a very left brain oriented reality. So in other words, this Homo sapiens we've really made the left brain the hero of our modern narrative. If you're a thinker and you can make quick decisions, you can get shit done, and you're like that kind of.
And that can be that's proven in schools. Look at what is the most valued subject in school.
Right.
It's all left-brain
you're a problem
activities.
solver. You get it. But the reality is that hyper focusing on those qualities has also caused us to move away from the right brain, quote unquote, experience, seeing the world in a more inclusive, more connected, more interconnected way, as opposed to the me, the identity, the self, the self-preservation, the egoic me. And so I think that with psychotropics, with psilocybin, ayahuasca, and the DMT release in the brain, and what's I think what it's producing is and again, I think this is the most profound thing it's producing.
What do you think?
Is interconnectedness, and I think that everyone sort of agrees on that. That's not some profound statement.
Yes. And the interesting part of that, the interconnectedness, is if everybody, let's say most people, had to experience that in a deep way, that serves as the foundations for our ethics and morals, right? Because if you're deeply in touch with that experience, the interconnectedness, right? Let's talk about violence and any of the problems that we have dissolve, right? The ethics of our morals. Morals and ethics. Sorry, I'm repeating myself here. But yes, that was it.
Well, I think as an example, it's very easy for a person to imagine. Let's say that you're at war with another country, and it's much easier for you to imagine dropping a bomb on a caricature of an enemy, on sort of an ambiguous, sort of generalized view of this bad person, and you go, fine, drop a bomb on that bad person. But when that bad person, when suddenly they're in view, and the qualities and their humanity become sort of, literally like sitting in your lap, it's very different for you to push that button. And I think that's one of the things that we're talking about with interconnectedness. Once you have a relationship with another person, it's difficult for you to act out violence upon them.
And the cosmos, right? And nature itself. Because
and
of
nature
course,
itself.
we look at the nature and the impact we're having on it, and we're so disconnected in that relationship. So these type of experiences highlighten and awaken that awareness, so that you can choose to live a more sustainable and harmonious life with nature. Because, I mean, we're at the precipice of a waterfall, aren't we, in terms of humanity? And it's certainly this medicine, this tool that can be used to, we're at a juncture. Are we sailing towards a meadow? Or are we over the waterfall? And what tools do we use to expand our awareness and compassion, so that we live more holistic and sustainable lives? And of course, these two practices, specifically meditation and psychotropics, are very important tools in that process.
Yeah, I think what sometimes causes me great discomfort in my thinking is that this current trend in the direction of psychotropics, the way that we're embracing.
Certainly in a renaissance, yes.
Yes, a renaissance, and this sort of embracing of psychedelics as a use for therapeutic, for recovery and therapy. I still find it similar to the yoga. Matter of fact, I question whether it will not even go in that direction. When yoga was introduced to the West, and that was not very long ago, that it became a part of pop culture consciousness. It was also thought as a savior. It was going to save and fix the Western perspective. The more people that we could get doing yoga, the better. Because yoga is obviously going to shift people who are stuck in a particular way of seeing the world, and going to open their mind and get them to readjust their perspectives on what's important and who they are and their identity. Because yoga,
is it placing too much value on one thing? Do you think that's what occurred?
Well, here's what happens is, as soon as we westernize something, and this is what I'm concerned about, is that when the West gets hold of anything, we tend to start stripping away the parts that don't serve us from a purely commercial standpoint. Well, that doesn't, that doesn't work for people. Oh, well, Christians won't do that. Oh, well, and we start going, well, leave that part out. And okay, and that part makes people
and
a little
in context
uncomfortable.
with ceremony, if you're taking these medicines out of their source and hosting ceremonies, what are you stripping away, and what were key components in the evolution of that medicine and the space that you hold? So yeah, it is an interesting conversation.
Well, it's interesting because, as an example, I was having, we were having that experience with my daughter, and who's 18 years old and wants to have a medicine journey with us. And so we, okay, you were there, by the way, so I'm telling you the stories if you weren't there. So we decided to eat some medicine, and we're hanging out together, and we happen to do this with a few, there was 3 people in the group that were a little younger,
right.
But my daughter being the youngest, and her, she's playing some of her music that she's sort of connected to, and one of the songs is like a hip hop song, and it's I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is so interesting, the way that these kids are being introduced to the experience, and the way that ceremony, is, again, and I'm being a complete purist here, but is in the jungle. there's no music. There's
the music is
maybe
traditional.
maybe it's beating of a drum, maybe it's shaking of a of a leaf of something.
It's very harmonic and very high vibration.
Right. And well, there's certainly no rap song about my bitches.
I'm not gonna say it, but
I'm not gonna say but. So I think what's interesting is as soon as the West gets a hold of something, we couple it with the Western value system or the Western sort of perspective on art and culture, which I already personally think is deteriorating and eroding to the and heading in the a direction that is less complex and less interruptive. I just feel like watching you. You can always tell where a culture is by its art. Mm-hmm. It's impossible to hide where that culture is. In its art is its music. That's what I mean. It's art.
Goodness.
It's music. It's entertainment. What it's doing.
It's expression.
It's expressing itself exactly.
Right.
And where we are right now artistically, for me personally, is frightening. It's just holy fuck. This is what.
In all areas of art, you think?
I don't think there's an outlier everywhere. In other words, there's an outlier in the music industry. There's an outlier in the art industry, or different mediums, of course. But what I'm saying is the predominant pop culture art, and that's why it's called pop culture. It's popular cultural. So who's the most famous artist? Who's the most well known? Who's the most celebrated? Who's got the most views? Because whoever does is being seen the most and is affecting the consciousness of the culture the most. That's impossible to argue because there's just no way to deny it.
Yeah, but that yardstick, we're doomed.
This is why I argue this point. Yeah, this is why I'm always bringing this up because it's such a significant. It's the canary in the coal mine. That when you look at a culture's art, it's the canary. You're like, how's that canary doing? Ours is fucking going like this. It can barely fly. So I'm very concerned.
Yes,
about
I hear
because when you look at all of the different factors that signal the end, we got a lot of those boxes ticked, and.
We went deep into that conversation, our extinction the other day, but I'll bring it back to the conversation specifically around psychedelics and meditation.
Oh, and how we keep it.
Right, and so of course, in context, so Johns Hopkins University, they're leading pioneer with specific studies with drugs, but substances to alter consciousness, and
psychoactive plants is what I think we're talking about.
They've got a very particular set and setting, and yes, it's not traditional, it's not ceremonial, but the outcome is profound, right? It's 80-90%, depending on what subject matter or grouping or what the problem was, 80 to 90%, I should say, success or positive outcome. And that is substantial. That is unprecedented in the psychoanalytical world.
Well, right? I mean, and again, not to push back, but to sort of, I think, challenge the general sort of argument here, which is that, 80 to 90% success compared to what? They don't have anything to compare this to. In other words, like...
To typical psychoanalysis, right? So psychotherapy,
to typical psychoanalysis.
Or ways of handling and navigating the psyche.
Got it.
Right, which is you sitting in a room talking to someone. How long does it take to solve a person's problem?
As
opposed to a single session with a particular substance and a particular problem.
So clarification.
A single session.
Right. So the clarification is they've had a very, very high rate of success working people's shit out with them compared to doing it with traditional therapies.
Right. And so, to speak to the conversation of taking something that is tradition in a particular ceremony, we have refabricated that into a Western setting, but still working. Right, and so
yes,
to that point,
a very thoughtful, clinical, sort of controlled space. So we're trying to minimize the sort of the interruptions that can occur, because I don't think a lot of people, I don't think, in saying a bad trip, but I don't think a lot of people have common experience with bad trips, but set and setting play a huge role. What's the environment, who's there, and a lot of these young kids out there are using these plants to party on, rather than to go diving deep into their consciousness and see who am I, what am I, why am I?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a key distinction there of if you take any substance and you don't go thin, you're not going to make any discoveries. You're just going to have a good time. You might have, you might connect with your friends and all that. And so, yes, to have profound insights, you need to create that setting. You need to, have a certain sacredness to the experience, or fabricate a sense of sacredness.
I'm. You know how I am. I'm so
sacred,
fucking
like
practical.
sacred?
Yeah, the word sacred just makes me want to stab myself. But I love you, and because when people, this is sacred. I'm like, well, first of all, we make up what's sacred.
It's a sense of sacredness.
I understand. I guess what I push back on is just the term for me, because it's such a subjective statement. What is sacred to you? What is not sacred to me? What is sacred to a Buddhist is completely heresy to a Muslim. So I just think the word sacred is such a,
Well, if we apply that word specifically to the state that you enter in deep, psychedelic experiences, that sense of sacredness. So,
well, is that the best word, or maybe we can, if there's a way to understand that word better, because I think a lot of people hear that word, we toss it around like the word intention. Guys, let's set an intention today. I just want to set an intention on this call that we're going to intentionally listen, and then we're going to intentionally have a breakthrough. So I like the word intention makes me want to fucking kill myself as well. And so I when I hear these, because they've been overused.
Well,
you know how long I've been in this business.
Like pop culture.
Yeah. The thing is, I've been in this world for so long that the word intention and sacred and divine and goddess, I've just heard them used to the point of them becoming benign. They have no potency anymore. I think what's important, and that's because they're purposely vague, and that's what I don't like about them. I don't like purposely vague words.
What word would you use to describe that particular experience?
I think that
you may need to mute someone.
Yeah. I think that hold on a second, guys. We're gonna mute someone. Somebody's unmuted. Okay. The question is, how would I describe the experience other than using the word sacred? I would describe the experience as expansive, like incredibly expansive. Like if I want to feel what it feels like to expand my consciousness to the complete ends of the universe, that's what psychoactive plants do for me, is give me a sense of how big everything is, and how because myself, that the tininess that I am, because I feel when I'm in the sober state, I feel so big. It's that ego feels like I'm so important. I matter so much. But then when I go there, it's a complete flip. And then it's like, wow, I'm so insignificant. I'm so tiny, but I'm so connected to all the tiny things that make the universe be. So for me, expansive comes up immediately for me. I didn't pre-plan that. But when you asked me sincerely, I was like, wow, expansive, but sacred seems way too religious for me. Now, you know how I feel about religion. I'm a huge fan. I'm not, but if I were, I would feel the same. I would feel that it would be too close to, and I think it's too tied in with religious vernacular. It's too often used in that place for me.
We've got to be particular.
But you didn't come from religion. See, and that's the thing too. If you don't come from a religion, I found this to be very interesting with people. If you don't come from a religious background, certain things don't trigger you.
Right.
certain words don't trigger you. Like for me, when I sit down because imagine how many yoga festivals I've been to. If I sit down and someone starts to conduct what is that thing that I hate when they sing? A kirtan. Kirtans make me want to become,
Just crawl up and
yeah,
die?
well, yeah. And the reason, now some people out there are going, oh my God, I love kirtans.
I don't even know what that instrument is.
No, it's not an instrument. It's a particular setting where you get a group together and someone leads and you sing. Basically, what you're doing is you're singing devotional Hindu
God, you don't like
hymns.
that?
Yeah, you don't like that. Because I grew up in a church where that's what you did. You sat and you sang devotional hymns.
Yeah.
So when I sit in kirtan, and I love watching Westerners singing religious hymns, and they're like, Krishna, I love you, Krishna. You might as well be saying, I love you, Jesus. There's no difference at all. But because you don't have the experience of Christianity that maybe has sort of tainted, that you can just enter right into it and be like, this is super fun. I love it.
I see the experience for what it is. I see what we're chanting together. The outcome of that could potentially be
the same
without,
fun, yes.
without the connection to religion or things that.
It's too, it's
the gloom of the world.
Well, the thing is, it's too familiar to me for me to see it from this perspective of again, I can't pretend singing devotional hymns is not singing devotional hymns just because it's in another language and to a different God. It's the same construct. So that's my pushback on it. So it's just really interesting that the word, for me, sacred, these things, they bring up that. And I'm like, I think that again, it's an opinion, but I feel that we've had, I don't speak for everyone. I've had enough of that. I personally am not interested in that anymore. I find that has, and there's a lot of people that would debate this with me very strongly. They would say, religion is an important part of the development of the Homo sapiens sort of cognition. And like we go through this stage where we need to sort of become devoted to something. And
certainly the correlation of large groups of people. I mean, that's how it says, what brings
some devotional
large people
service
together in peace.
Yeah. But for me, it doesn't need to be the devotion or the celebration of a God or of a concept. It really, for me, personally feels like it should be the celebration of collaboration, of cooperation, of something we do together that we're all collectively, whether it's like as an example, I've watched people push a whale into the ocean. And I think we've all seen that on
a whale.
A whale. Like on YouTube videos, you see a whale get stranded on the beach and you see this body of people like push that whale back in the ocean. Now see, that's something to fucking celebrate. I see that and I see the way these people hug each other.
They just come together.
Yeah, oh my God. And they push that whale and they see that this whale swims off. And
so it's almost a common problem that brings us together.
Yeah, I love it. I love coming together to solve a problem.
So what problems do we need to create?
Oh God,
we're
not even going. Yeah, we're not even. No, but the point is, I think that is, for me personally, that's the direction I would say would make a big shift in the cooperative experience for humans. Is stop coming together to celebrate made up deities and made up ideas, and start coming together and celebrating solving problems together. Let's figure out how to collectively stop, destroying our ecosystem, and then let's hug it out and fucking cry together once we've solved some of these big problems. But let's stop coming together purely to worship a God that's supposed to come and fix all this, or who's, or
sure.
You're
just giving all that power to
all
some
garbage.
great,
It's all fucking garbage, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you want to cry and hug together,
push a whale into, guys. Go find a whale that's been stranded or turtles on the beach. Get with some friends, save them, and then see if that doesn't feel so much better than going, oh, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I mean, that's my opinion. So you can do it any way you want to do it, but that's a real tangible moment. That to me, if you want to play with the word sacred, okay, fair, that's sacred. It's like we just we're part of, something that's, I don't know, there's something powerful. But again, maybe we interrupted something important. Like maybe that whale was carrying a disease that we now pushed back into the ocean, and the whale then gave to its other pod and killed all the whales. So, humans are always
creating problems.
We're always creating problems to solve problems, to create problems to solve problems.
Is there anything else we want to speak about?
No, I think we should close up on this, which is the plant medicine experience. Something that we're holding our first one. Here it's going to be very powerful. We're looking forward to that. And I think we should just take some questions real quick if anybody has anything. Take that question real quick. Kemba, take that question.
Side effects on using plant medicine, specifically psilocybin, for example.
I mean, there have been none documented. There are. It's non-toxic. It's not a toxic compound. It's purely psychoactive. So it affects the serotonin molecule, and that has a cascading neurological effects. But side effects, no.
Maybe we could touch base on is a bad trip, bad trip versus a good trip.
Bad trip versus good trip. So. Perspective, well, the key thing that happens when you have a bad trip is the inability to surrender to the experience. And there are certain practices which you can incorporate into your life. For example, we have ice baths, and ice baths is a perfect space to learn how to surrender. If you get into the ice, everything about you is shouting, screaming, this is painful, I want to get out. But it's that particular willpower muscle, surrender, soften the mind and soften the body. And so that's kind of just a yardstick, a good test for you for the psychedelic experience, and that's what we will be incorporating into our experience. And so in the experience itself, you have two main tools, which is your breath, because you can breathe through the most challenging experiences, as well as so that's your kind of your somatic part of you. The psychological part of you is you learn how to lean into the pain and kind of turn it inside out and see how far it goes. Because there's something unique happens in the experience when you can do that, right? And in that process, you're crying and you're just releasing, and So let me backtrack. So those two particular tools are what you have to prevent a bad trip. A bad trip is just holding on. So as soon as you let go, you welcome in space and joy.
It's control. It's all about the control moment.
Right. And that comes in waves, of course. You tense up and you have certain thought processes and memories, and you want to tense up, and then you realize you're tensing up, and okay, let me breathe, let me release, and so that's the cycles, and it's the cycles of remembering and releasing is the kind of neurological reprogramming, rewiring that happens in that experience, which beyond the experience, that's why it's so helpful, because you're going through those experiences and reinterpreting them, and essentially releasing the tension in your body.
And to that point, we want to control our state of mind. So if you've had a traumatic experience, you want to control not going back into it again. You want to not revisit that. So what do? You focus on other things. You distract your mind with other experiences. You make your mind busy with other things. And when that pain comes up, you go, I won't think about that. I'll redirect and think about this. What happens when you're having a psychoactive plant experience is you can't control your mind like that. You don't have that option. The mind, the plant is doing what the plant does.
Your framework for interpretation dissolves.
Correct. So you're not going to just be able to simply go, oh, well, I'm going to think over here now. I'm going to redirect over there now. that cognitive ability is disabled temporarily. So what you're going to have to do is accept that loss of control. And as to Kemba's point, you're going to have to simply embrace going into that pain until that pain dissolves and is no longer pain, but sensation. Because pain is the way you would define a sensation, through the sort of narrow corridor of sobriety. You know, in our sober brain, we go, oh, this is pain and this is suffering and this is good and this is bad. But when you break free of all of those definitions, you just get into sensation, because at the end of the day, everything is simply sensation. It's your mind that gets to determine whether that sensation is pleasure or pain. So once you break free from those definitions, all you're feeling is feeling. And that feeling state is powerful, but you have to get to that feeling state by letting go of that thinking state, which has already got the meanings and the definitions, and it's already got everything sort of nicely wrapped up for you. Like, this means pain to me. But it doesn't have to. This could mean pleasure to you. This could mean nothing to you. It's all depending on how you frame it.
Yeah, you can even shift it to gratitude, right? You find gratitude for those experiences because they've certainly steered your life in particular directions, you know, so from trauma to gratitude. Yeah, and that's a shift that can occur.
And I always find it so fascinating how people who end up in a place in their lives have so much resistance to being grateful when look where you are. You know, to me, wherever you are is the best place you've ever been. And I mean that. I'm not saying that to sound, contrived. Wherever you are is the best place you've ever been. And I don't care where the fuck it is. I don't care if it's in a prison cell. It's the best place you've ever been, because it's where you have to work from. There is no other place to work from. You can't work from the past. And you can't work from the imagined future. You can only work from where you are. So it is the best place you've ever been. So you got to work with that moment and then make a decision from that place. You know, now I'm not saying that there aren't terrible places to be, because let's say you are in a prison and you're being tortured and you're like, I'm not enjoying this experience in the body.
Tortured in prison?
Does
that still happen?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, of course it happens. Yeah, absolutely. And so you can decide that you don't, you want to check out, and there are definitely ways to sort of think of this. But I think for the average person, so let's not be so dramatic about it. For the average person who's free and has choice, you're in an extraordinary place. If you're free and you are free to make decisions for yourself, whether you go left or right, forward or back, up or down, you're in a fucking extraordinary position in life. So how could you not be grateful? So the point, so that's to me part of the work is getting into that state.
Yes, how to get into that state. And it is demonstrated in so many studies that to bring meaning back into your life, the use of psychotropics and meditation bring meaning back into your life.
And that's what we'll be aiming to do in our experience. That's the work that we're going to be conducting on our first experience. And guys, if you miss it because you live in a different country and you can't make it this time, it's okay, because it won't be the last time that we hold these experiences. So, I'm assuming that we may be able to travel again, by, of course, the next summer. So it may be just taking time, saving up, and.
Can you just speak quickly to the role of the guide? Because right now you guys are referring mainly to how you yourself can coach yourself and redirect, and how do you see it in the setting of having a guide?
Well, what's just to be clear on the question is what is the guide's role? Well, for me, I see the guide's role at the guides, the sitter, the space holder. That individual's role, at least again, and opinions may vary on this, because obviously this is opinion based rather than factual. There's no way to qualify this statement. But I would say that the space holder needs to be able to have deep empathy, like really be empathetic and understand what the other person is experiencing, whether they're in what pain they're in, whether they're in great joy, whether they're in a moment they're stuck and they're stuck in trying to break free of control, whatever they're experiencing. the guide needs to be able to sit and hold space and keep reminding them that this is going to pass, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's temporary.
It's that simple. The guide is not meant to fix or to.
It's not a therapy
speak.
session, correct?
Right,
yeah.
right. It's purely being there in presence and just very gentle reminders. Because the important process in the setting is that you learn to be your self-healer, how to heal yourself. So the guide there is just purely, if you're unable to do anything, it's just that final release and assurance to let go, and that is the only role of the guide.
I had an interesting. I was holding space for a young guy. You probably remember this in Miami. He was sitting there, and he was having a really. It was his first time.
Hard time.
Journeying, and he was really looping and having a really intense ride. And I go over and I say, "How you doing? How's everything?" And he said, "What was the question?
It was about like him moving and
Yeah.
leaving his job.
Yeah, he said, I think I need to
go.
I need to quit my job and move here." But he was having this whole like something had occurred to him, like he had found like something clicked in him, and he was like, and what it did was it disturbed his entire world view back home, and then he was like, this is in his brain, at least at that moment, he was like, I belong here, and that means that what I have back there is just a fucking illusion. And I think that contrast really messed with him in that moment. He was sitting there, he's like, I don't know what to do. And I go, well, what do you want to do? And he was like, well, I want to move here. And I was like, okay, well, you can do that. And I mean, literally just very like I'm talking to a child, because again, there's nothing complex about it's like, what do you want to do? That to me, that's how I hold space for people personally, because because he wasn't laying on his back in outer space. He was already at that stage of thought and contemplation. So, you're able to have a conversation, but I remember that very well of just sitting and just gently being like, well, that's okay. You can do that, and just giving him permission for things not to be, it was like, because I think sometimes people just don't know how simple it is either. It's like, I want to take that off. I'm like, well, it's okay. Take it off. Well, I can't take it off. And I'm like, well, but you can if you want to. But if I take it off, it means all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but that's okay. You can take, and I think sometimes the guide is just giving people permission, because somehow we're all looking for someone to give us permission, just to because we won't give it to ourselves. It's the golden handcuffs concept. It's I'm my own. I'm prisoner of my own with the key in my hand, and so sometimes just being the voice, is how you hold space.
I think what you said earlier of just being or reassuring that where they are is fine. I think you said it exactly.
A constant reassurance that it's okay. Wherever you're at is perfect, and this is.
And in that state, that means the world. Just a physical presence, and that's often all you need is just a person with a warmth and compassion saying certain things to you, and it's like, okay, I can let go. It's really that simple.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask, because I've been journeying for, because I'll be, 15. I've been journeying for 30 years doing this work, and I feel like I've seen about everything. I've seen demons, not really, but yes. And I mean, I've seen all the things you can see, and the wildest. And I don't mean demons as I saw it. I mean, I saw someone turn in and morph into, it's just crazy. I've seen it all. But they weren't. But you think I was hallucinating? They actually morphed. This person had a full
embodied.
They had a full experience, and I watched it, and I was like, "Wow, okay, this is." interesting. But I've seen so many different variations of this theme that, between all of us, you're very well guided, and that's the most important thing to know, is that you'll be well guided.
Can you please tell them to just email me if they have...
If you have questions or interests, you can email Melaine at Budokon.com. So Melaine@Budokon.com. Any other questions that came up? Are we good?
Happiness.
Okay, guys, beautiful.
Thank you for listening.
Yep, thanks for...
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. And we wrapping up another beautiful Sunday session. What a lovely experience for us to get to make a difference for you guys. And thank you for making a difference for us by holding space for us. And we look forward to seeing you again on, the following Sunday.
Yes.